Hello everyone, this is a rather simple video. It's just a bunch of background footage where I, as the warden, do a series of orders that surgically deconstruct a revolution taking place, but at the same time, I really don't care. It's like a short shift and related to the topic at hand. See, Funkystation, the station I play on the most often, has made several interesting changes to Revolutionaries, the game mode. And I want to talk about the good changes before I talk about the bad changes. See, some of the changes that Funkystation has made are really good and do elevate the game mode significantly, but they're brought down by several changes which are, to be fair, experimental and should be used in order to let's just say explain why these changes are bad to other servers. First of all, the good. Revolutionaries have received an uplink, same as the Cindies, where they can spend a currency called Rev Coin to acquire revolutionary items. This does a few things. First of all, it gives the Cindies the ability to not, or the Revs, the ability to not have the starting flash on them and instead in their uplink. This is useful to avoid metagaming or certain spawning bugs where stuff just drops on the floor from them just, manifesting and all that crap. A simple change, but what you can do with the uplink is pretty cool. See, the uplink has 4 items. It has a flash, which is just a standard 5-use flash. It has sunglasses, which is, well, protection from flashes. They're just basic sunglasses, nothing special about them. But the main thing, and the thing that's very interesting, is the fast draw implanter. See, it is actually possible to convert mind-shielded personnel, such as the captain, the head of security, the quartermaster, by using an implanter to take the implant out of them. However, this is very, very rare to see used, as it requires you to take down a command or security member who often have, their coordinates on, protection, etc., and for them to, well, not just get murdered by the revolutionaries, because Revs is a very violent game mode. It often just kind of collapses into people shooting each other, and I do agree with the take that several people have made that changes that should be made to revolutionaries shouldn't make the game mode less violent, but it should make the game mode less randomly violent. See, I don't see an issue with Revs being an inherently violent game mode. I do have an issue with it being random violence, which results in half of the crew being round removed due to rot. If there's a way to slow down the violence, it would be far easier to deal with. But that's not the case. Anyways, the fast draw implanter is exactly what it seems like. It's an implanter that draws faster. Self-explanatory. However, this does allow for plays where you convert a security officer, command member, or whatever to happen much faster. The 4th item is a syndicate radio chip, which is whatever. It allows you to communicate with the other head Rev over Cindy radio, but you don't have enough uses of them to be, communicating with your Revs en masse. Now, I would like to suggest some changes. First of all, Rev Coin is a currency. Make it so that a successful conversion gives you additional Rev Coin to work with. Because, obviously. And 2, make it so that every single item in the Rev uplink is in fact possible to use multiple times. You can get multiple fast draw uplinks. You can get multiple syndicate radio chips. I don't see how these would significantly affect the balance and allow the good that these items, being the uplink, does to, well, to affect the round more often. See, multiple fast draw uplinks would be really good. Multiple, Jesus, that guy's angry. Multiple, flash spawns would be good. It would severely reduce the reliance on converting a scientist or a security officer to supply you with more flashes. And the Syndicate radio chip would allow for better communication with certain revolutionaries. In addition, I do like the change to the game mode. See, it used to be where you need either to have all of command, well, executed or cuffed or converted. This is still the case, but there is instead a minor and major conversion thing. If you convert all of command, you get a major. If not, a minor. This is often completely useless and never touched on by, well, anyone, but it does allow certain, what is it? It does allow certain encouragements of different game mode states. So, more peaceful and quiet revolutions that involve abducting command members instead of a flat shootout with sec are often more viable and more encouraged. Not a big change, but a good one. This is, unfortunately, where the good changes end, and I have to start talking about the changes that are short-sighted and to the benefit of nobody, neither Rev nor Command. For reference, I will be referring to the teams as Rev, Command, and Unconverted. I will refer to Unconverted as not Command, which Command represents the security and Command teams, obviously, but the Unconverted represents people that have not been mind-shielded and people that have not been revolutionaried. People that essentially have not been forced to pick a side in the conflict yet. With that out of the way, let's get to the changes that I really do not like. First of all, let's talk about what just happened. Like, right there. You see me go up to the RD, I realize, oh, they're not mind shielded. This is because the security officers can easily see who is and who isn't a potential enemy revolutionary. This is because, quite simply, knowledge and information, especially readily accessible information in a game like Space Station, where we're asking a question, are you a Rev or are you Sec? What are your intentions, etc., is the difference between life and death. You can see why the first change that I really disagree with is revolutionaries not being able to identify each other. For reference, head revolutionaries can see other revolutionaries, including the other head revs. Revs, though, basic revs, not the heads, cannot see other revolutionaries and only the heads. This causes a lot of confusion, like a comical amount of confusion. I believe the idea behind this is to force revs to interact with each other to identify when someone is an enemy and when someone is a friend. Essentially to stop the random murder of the random murder of fellow crew who could be a rev, that aren't a rev by confirmation of the revs not seeing each other. In practice, though, this just results in revs being incredibly hostile and way too disorganized. Because again, security members don't have to think about this. They don't have to think, is this guy a potential revolutionary or not? You saw it just now. I was able to identify that the research director was a revolutionary because his mind shield was gone. It was that simple. I'm able to identify that the mime is friendly because I mind shielded them. And let's say the mime gets kidnapped, captured, and converted back into a rev after their mind shield is removed. That is a single glance away of them being around me with my sight glasses on to realize that they are now a converted rev. And to proceed to arrest them. That's the problem. The revolutionaries need to have, at the baseline, better access to information than the security team does. For one simple reason. Security auto wins against a revolution that they're aware of. They automatically win because security players are already robust in combat. They know what they're doing. They signed up to do combat. They likely, at the very least, know what they're doing combat-wise. And, quite simply, if they enter security... if they, the revolutionaries, want to win, they need to come up with a plan to take away security's power. And right now, there's no way to do that unless the security team actively fucks up or someone pulls some insane bullshit such as chem sabotage or atmos sabotage. For reference, there are revolutionaries, such as a chemist named Barry Redwiles, who you may have encountered on Funky if you play on there, who will make a concoction of smoke that, when breathed in, explodes and gives the people that breathe it in. Which is hilarious and very effective. And you also saw in my other Rev video where I played as an Atmos Revolutionary. I was able to kill a fuck ton of security officers using nitrous oxide gas to sleep them. And that's a problem. Because a normal, like, let's just say it's a bunch of passengers, for example. Like, the Revolutionary is entirely passengers or even cargo technicians. Not Salve, though, because Salve is actually capable of combat. Again, non-combat roles forced into combat by the game mode. Which, on one hand, sure, why not? I don't have an issue with that. As, like, a very basic baseline, I don't have a problem with that. The issue I do have is that, the revolutionaries don't have access to, the basic information of who's a rev and who's not. They have no way to coordinate a jumping, and if, say, a revolutionary starts beating the crap out of a security officer, they don't know if that guy's a revolutionary or a syndicate or if they should join or not, because they don't know how many fellow revolutionaries are around them. That's a problem. That is raw, straight up a problem, and I think that needs to be reverted. I do not think that's a good change. I think that exclusively promotes mindless killing and makes it impossible to organize against the command staff who already have basic communication on lock and need to communicate more of their plan instead of, are you friendly, are you not? I think that there is no saving this change, and it's just flat out bad. Yeah. Moving on. Let's move on to a change that I actually quite like. Revolutionaries, upon successfully converting someone, have a special text whenever the flash happens that shows the eyes going white, which doesn't happen whenever a flash is used normally. This is a really good change, because everyone knows that revs convert with flashes, and while I do agree with the sentiment that flashes are way too easy to metagame, this does cut down on it and allows you to not be metagaming upon seeing someone flash someone. Yeah, good change. Onto a change that actually, well, they absolutely sucks. It's just terrible, and I frankly don't know how this ever got added. How do I put this in a way that makes sense? So, let's say you're the captain of the station. Nothing's happened, evac is called automatically. And then after a bit, the shuttle is recalled and CENTCOM reports a usual activity at the station. And you can't call it again. Yeah, they forced it so that the crew has to eliminate the revolution before evacuation can come. This is fucking stupid. Like, this is just flat out dumb. Because, for reference, this promotes round stalling from the revolutionaries, and it's often the point where, as long as the head rev doesn't get caught, they'll just keep running away and hiding, which, like, yeah, sucks. But on the other hand, what do you want them to do about it? Like, seriously, what do you want them to do about it? Do you want them to play unoptimally? Do you want them to play intentionally shit for the sake of the round? Because, well, obviously people should play with the notion that other people are trying to enjoy the Space Station 14 video game themselves. That's not going to be the case. You can't just force that. Now, let's say that, you know, you call this an admin issue. Let's just say, for the sake of argument here, that if someone is round stalling as a rev, which, first of all, is a problem because we don't know the exact definition of round stalling. Is a revolutionary running away and hiding in mates and playing it slowly building up power and conversions and gear in order to enact a big surge revolution work? Or is that round stalling? Again, uncertainty is the enemy of this problem. Or uncertainty is the enemy in any kind of situation like this. Okay, let's say that's not round stalling. Well, let's say everyone is a perfect player and wants to enjoy the video game. Then the head rev's internet crashes. Then what? The head rev, who is just wandering in mates, slowly gathering materials, just, not even slowly, just running in mates, just at a time, for any reason. Who cares? Let's say, for the sake of argument, that the head rev's internet just explodes. His internet just blows up. For no reason. Their internet goes down, and now the round is stuck. Permanently. Until an admin kills the head rev or does something. This should not be possible, flat out. A random head rev in the middle of mains should not result in the entire game stalling. Because, for reference, you are not allowed to interact with SSD people. Space Sleep Disorder being the people that left the game, i.e. this head rev's internet that has crashed. You're not allowed to interact with them. Thus, in order to make the round function, you need to A, realize that the head rev is SSD in mates somewhere, and B, interact with them in order to make the round work. This is dumb. This also results in metagaming to the point where anything could happen. Like, let's say, like, the Tesla loses or something. You know, Edgy screws up, Tesla loses, blah, 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 whatever. The crew can't evacuate despite the fact that the round is literally over because there's a Tesla blowing everything up, and most of the crew is dead due to the aforementioned Tesla. What then? No, seriously, what then? What do you do then? Like, what do you do? Like just straight up. Shell can't be called. The head rev, if they're alive, is certainly not going to be very able to convert people. Security officers, if they're alive, are already armed because of the nature of, you know, armory being blown open by a Tesla loose. What do you do? Precisely. This needs to be reverted. Just straight up. Like, just actually straight up just revert this. Why is this even added? Like, it exclusively causes problems, and the only thing it solves is shuttle bombings and shuttle fights and fighting over the console being called, which, for reference, I think that calling evacuation to force the revolutionaries to do something is a completely fair play. But, again, yeah, it's not exactly good. So, here's what I suggest. Let's do more with the uplink implanter, or the uplink. Frankly, I think that adding in for double the cost of the other items, for like 20 rev coins instead of 10, add Mozins. For reference, the Mozin is a pretty bad weapon, but it's a cheap weapon. So, arm the revs with Mozins. If the revolutionaries gather enough Mozins, they can open up firing lines and, shoot people, shoot Sekovs, and they have a firearm that works. Sure, they're not obviously going to overpower security on their own with a Mosin because the Mosin sucks, but they're not completely unable to fight a security officer with a gun who just mows them down. So, yeah, that's solution one. The other two things, the revs not being able to see each other, I have proposed in the Funky Discord a couple times basically adding the buff banners from TF2, where you can identify yourself as a head rev by wearing the flag on you, or identify yourself as a rev with the flag on you. I don't think I want to make the banners exclusive to the head revs, but I do think designating this as a head and allowing the revs to see, everyone that is a rev around in like a big radius around the person with the flag, and the flag also granting buffs, like a speed buff, for example, a healing buff, for example. The spirit of the revolution makes you do more damage with like your punches, or makes you move faster, or makes you immune to stuns, or something like that. I don't know. We can cook up something here, but the only thing I do think that absolutely has to be changed, the objective with I'm sorry, but even like you need to understand here, right? Even with the head revs wanting to instead convert command, rounds are still bloody round stall-y messes, where half the crew is round removed, no one on either side has fun, and it's decided by whoever roleplays the least. As such, here's what I think could be a fair bit more interesting. What if the mind shields have to be powered in order to avoid mass conversion? If the mind shields want to work, security has to defend and keep active a mind shield broadcaster somewhere in, say, the bridge, armory, vault, Cap's office even, someplace that the revs have to shut down that can disable the mind shields, allowing for easier conversion of pretty much everyone to the side of the revolution. This will come with a drawback to the revs, though. This should work on like a charger, like similar to the station anchor and the gravity generator. If the revolutionaries want to, say, avoid the crew just retaking the mind shield broadcaster, they need to make sure it's not charged. And if they choose to not de-implant people, which takes time, again, it would take time for the mind shield generator, the mind shield broadcaster, to get back up. And then everyone with a mind shield still that's been converted would result in the converted revolutionaries being deconverted by the effects of the mind shield once again. This would also make things such as security glasses, sunglasses, welding masks, and other flash-proof items much more valuable. Overall, though, I do think that, some changes are good, and they're on the right track. I still don't think you're going to avoid the inevitability of the entire head revolution and conversion and objective thing being completely swapped out for something better. But at the moment, I like that they're changing things. It's better than just re-adding the Revolutionaries game mode and not doing something else stupid with the game mode. Oh, also, another change that's good, the head revs, the head revs no longer have to be executed, and implanting them will break their mind control bullshit. So you can keep the head revs alive and just perma them, so they're not round removed. Yeah. Anyway, a bit of a yap fest of a video. Let me know if you want more just opinions on things like this, because I do have a lot to say about a lot of different aspects of Space Station 14. And I do think that these videos could be good. And I think that a lot of what makes Space Station 14 Space Station 14 shouldn't just be a parody with, or a parallel with what 13 did. I do think there's a lot of discussion to be had about what the design philosophies of game modes and departments and other things should be, and I'd be happy to oblige these discussions. Let me know what you think about the comments below. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Seriously, the amount of ideas I stole from the comment section is big. And I'd like to thank my channel members, Florbagaster, Some Kitty Cat, Northstar, Plant23, Webs Order, Philippa and Rob said, Taster Rapin. You take out a channel member down below, support the show, blah, blah, blah. And if you're watching this at the time of its premiere and you're watching the premiere live, I will be live at 3 with some Space Station 14, where I'd love to discuss this video in an active setting. Thank you for watching, have a good day, and I'll see you sometime in the future, probably. Bye now.